This is Kenny with another edition of the Yak with Mac. We got to talk to Director of Business Development, Matt Chappell, and we got into the importance of really digging in with your people and so much more. Listen in. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Yak with Mac. And I cannot wait. One of my heroes for a long time has joined me tonight. And I cannot wait because this leader is very special and he's been very influential on my career for a long time. So, leaders, I'm going to skip all the stuff I talk about. You know what the deal is. You've got to get to leader ready 15 minutes a day. Make sure you're doing something that's going to help you develop yourself. So I want to introduce this man who, again, has been a great leader for years and years, held so many positions throughout before Sprint and now T-Mobile, and really has an important position. We're going to find out about what he's doing now. But I want to introduce Matt Chappell, the Director of Regional Business Development for the Northeast. And Matt, let's give it up. It is great to see you again. I haven't seen you in a long time, and so it is fantastic to see you. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great, Ken, and thank you for the time. You know, you're always good to see. I'd like to see you live though. This is I think we're close, man. We're getting to the end of this thing.
Yes, we are.
And I think I'm going to be able to go to New York and go to places. Although I don't know how much New York I'll be doing. I think think of these small towns that nobody's heard of, and that's where I'll be. So you'll have to meet me there. But things are good. You know, I'm healthy. Made it through COVID, and everybody's good and loving life in Charlotte, North Carolina, and enjoying my first year at T-Mobile. It's been a good journey so far. How are you doing?
That's awesome. I'm doing fantastic, and I'm enjoying life as well. And yes, I will find you when you come to New York because I just would have to see you face to face, no doubt. Hey, Matt, so here's where I'd love to start tonight because there's so much on leadership that I want to dig in with you. But I think it's so important that the audience get to know you a little bit in your career journey. And you can walk us through as short or as long as you want to walk us through. But definitely want to hear on some of the things you're working on now. So walk us through your career journey and what got you to this place now and what are you working on now?
Yeah, no, it's wow, and it has been a journey. The journey has taken me. I took my wife through a lot of glamorous places. You know, we met in Detroit, working for Nextel. We both worked for Nextel. You know, she didn't work for me. I followed the rules, but I probably would have been working for her at some point. But we lived in Metro Detroit, and got my first opportunity. I was a business sales rep for Nextel, and out grinding it out, and I got an opportunity. This is probably the most influential moment of my career. I applied for a job in Lansing, Michigan to launch the Lansing, Michigan market. I'd been with the company, I was 24. I'd been with the company for about 14 months, and I'd hit my quota 14 months in a row. So of course, when they launch a new market, why wouldn't they take the guy to go launch it and open up offices and things that's 24 and has hit quota 14 months in a row? I thought that was the right call. They said in the interview, let me tell you why you're not getting the job. I said, well, I haven't even interviewed yet. And, you know, looking back, I was like, of course I'm not getting the job. He goes, but here's what I want you to do, Matt. I want you to move to Lansing. You're going to be the first business sales rep out in Lansing. You'll help us launch it. And unfortunately, because you'll be a senior, we're going to take your quota up from 50 to 60 a month. And you're going to have to start over from scratch with no ramp. How's that sound? Well, most people would say there's no way.
Right.
And I said, where do I sign, guy? Because that's the guy that told me. I said, I'm going to go out there. I went out there, and I'm on corrective action 90 days into the job because I have no ramp. They tell me my quota is 60. It's gone. I got nothing. It wasn't really a good deal. And I was feeling sorry for myself one day. I was like, you know, and I looked in the mirror and I said, you know, Matt, you're not doing what you did those first 14 months. You were resting on your laurels. And I went to President's Council in the same year.
Wow.
12 months later,
Wow.
because I was feeling, I just went in there. Hey, Matt Chappell's in town. I'm going to sell in Lansing. Nobody cared, right? They didn't come. You know, come. You had to go find your business as a business rep. And I went and did that. And it was the best move of my life. I went out there, I took something that nobody else would do. And everybody else said, no, you're crazy to do that. And I did it. And, 2 years later, I got that same job. I was trying to get in Lansing in Grand Rapids. And then my career accelerated. I moved from Grand Rapids to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Indianapolis, Indianapolis to Kansas City. I finally got my wife and family to Charlotte a couple of years ago, which was great. And I love it here. So the story of that whole time and all those moves was that I went the road less traveled, took the hard path that nobody else wanted, and went after it. And I've done that throughout my career. I've gone to those cities that probably weren't people's first choices. I've loved all the places I've lived, and I've pursued it. And I've always been willing to go after a job and that maybe wasn't where everybody else was going. And it allowed me to get to every level just a little quicker. And I set a goal for myself young. I said, I want to be a director before I'm 30, and I accomplished that. And then, of course, I set a goal that I needed to be the CEO by the time I was 40. And when I turn 40 in a few years, I'm kidding. But obviously, priorities shift, and it's a little harder to keep going. But
Yeah.
I've always taken the road a little bit less traveled, and that's why I'm in small markets right now. I thought, we merged and went through some adjustments, and was named as a market director in Charlotte. And I said, I've done that since 2002, and I'm not going to grow from that as much as it's a new company, different things. I'm going to grow by going after what's hard, and I'm going to go into what's hard, but is also a shiny object. And that was FTR at the time. And now it's changed to SMRA. Please don't call it SMRA and Smyrna. And it's SMRA.
All right.
That's
Right.
it. You heard it here first. So I
Yeah.
went there, and because this is where the company is going to grow, and this is going to be hard, it's going to challenge us every day. But that's where I want to be. And if you want to grow and you want to accelerate and you want to grow in your career, you cannot go with what's easy. And you have to take what others may not want to take. And you have to go to places people don't want to go. And otherwise, if I wouldn't have done that, I might still be a business sales rep in Detroit doing the same thing I was doing in 1996. But I took a different path. And now I'm where I want to be. And I'm doing the things I want to do. And it's been great. So, and I've met a lot of great people like yourself along the way. I wouldn't do anything different.
Wow, that is just an awesome story. It is so inspiring, especially the doing and going places where no one else would go, to get where you want to get to. And I think I think sometimes a lot of leaders may want to take the easier path. You took the hard path, and look how it's paid off for you. Um, let's get into. I want to get into some leadership stuff with you because there's been one thing. There's a lot of things that's always fascinated me about you, and you've just always been so good to me, and you've always gotten to know me and gone out of your way to get to know me. But something when you were director in the Ohio's and in Louisville, Indianapolis, I will never forget how you knew everybody's name. You knew every retail consultant at the time, what we call them, every assistant manager, store manager. You always knew something, a little bit something about everybody. And that really served you, I thought, served you extremely well. How did you do that? And is that something that you're still doing?
Yeah, so thank you for that. And Ken, you're easy to want to get to know because you're magnetic. I've always liked our relationship. But and I think your daughter worked in one of my stores in Ohio, so that helped a bit.
Yeah.
But she did a great job, so I'm sure she's doing big things now. But
Yeah.
so this is a little bit of it's a brief story, but when I was in the business channels years ago, and I did a lot of years in business, for many, many years, I was, in public sector and enterprise and all the different business channels with Nextel. That was most of my time with Nextel, and love that. And but it was before I went into a consumer job, and I was at a golf outing. I'm not a golfer. I've never broke 100. I think 108. I'm like, I still have all the I still have a golf ball left. It feels good. But I was out at a golf outing with these guys that work for DFW Shoe Warehouse. You might know DSW.
Yeah.
And they were in my foursome, and I didn't know them. They were just in the group. And I said, "What do you guys do?" And they said, "Work for DSW." And I asked this stupid question to them. I was young, and I said, "So what is it?" I said, "Do you know a lot about shoes? or is it really a lot about retail? And the guy looked at me, he was the regional director of DSW, goes, I don't know anything about either one of them. He goes, I know people. And he goes, retail is a people job. And I felt stupid. And then I, shanked the ball into the weeds, I think. But, it was, it was eye-opening for me. It was like, duh. Because I'd done that in business, I deal with people, but in retail, I was like, well, you have to be I didn't know anything about retail. And then the merger came of Sprint and Nextel. And I was working for a guy named Kevin Gleason, kind of a hero and mentor of mine.
Yes.
And Kevin was like, Matt, you got business, you got indirect, and you got retail. This is when we merged with Sprint and Nextel. And I was a director at the time. He goes, what do you want? Nobody wanted retail from Sprint or from Nextel because that wasn't what we did. We did indirect and we did business really well. That was actually what attracted, I think, Sprint was, other than the spectrum, it was they wanted those business customers and the indirect experience because we were good there. And nobody wanted retail. And I scratched my head and I said, you know what? Road less traveled. I said, I'm doing retail. And my first day ever in retail was as a retail director in 2005.
Wow.
And that was first day. But I'd never forgotten what those guys from DSW said, is it's a people job. And I was always afraid of retail because I was like, wow, it's stores and things. And I misunderstood it. And I got into it. And I just said from the beginning, I said, this is people. And the first year I worked 2 years. And I'm about to do that again in this job. First year I worked 2 years, and I'm not kidding about the 2 years. And I invested 2 years of time in the first year, and it was just people. And I'm so proud of what people have done. And I believe that leaders are successful because of having successful people. Get out of the way. It's not that hard in retail. Find good people and make sure they don't want to leave. And because you can do things that make them want to leave, and don't do anything that makes them want to leave, and then get to know them. And I always felt like if I got a store manager and I have 60 store managers or 70, whatever I might have had, they're not all going to be perfect. They're not all going to be leading perfectly. Maybe a mobile expert will hang around if they have a relationship with the director. They might hang in through a store manager that's not perfect. Maybe a store manager will hang in if there's a DM that isn't doing it right, but they'll hang in because they're connected with me, and I might get a heads up on it. And I took that approach for years and years and years and years. And I'm just super proud of what all those people have done. They did the work. I just tried to create a foundation and a landscape where people wanted to be there and they'd want to stay. And I'm really proud of what that OKI team did. I think we built a brand for that team.
No doubt.
And yeah. It was a brand that exported talent. And I'm super proud of all the people that are out there today. I think about guys like John Francis and Nate Littlefield and AJ Kissel and Marty Hayes and Mike Loney and Terry Liptak and all these people that were foundational people inside those teams, and Darren Licks and all these people that I had that have gone on, done big things, and all the people they had that went on, and I'm leaving people out, just so many great people in those orgs. And it was great to see what they were able to do. And I still watch them in relationship with those folks today, but it's just a people game. And if you look through that lens, you don't even have to say it's about the people. You just make it about them. When you declare it's the people, it's like just with your actions, they should see it. You don't have to declare it; just do it, and they'll see it and they'll stay. And if they stay, you win. And that's my approach.
That is such great advice, and it's funny to me, Matt, because it sounds a little bit strategic, but it just comes so natural to you. And, I might be exaggerating just a tad, but I think you could fill up a basketball arena with the people that you influenced and impacted over the years and that are still with T-Mobile and are very successful in director roles. You had I remember AJ as a store manager and, him being a very successful director now, and he's just one of many. But it was just from that approach that you had. You always took that time. I love that you said you worked 2 years in your first year, because I can remember seeing you in meetings and in stores, and you would barely, it would take you a long time to get from the front door to the back because you were just so engaged with the people, and that always stood out for me, for you. And I really felt like that was always such a huge part of your success. You knew your stuff. I mean, we could talk numbers all day long, I remember back in the day, but it was, if I asked you about, certain people, then forget it. The light bulb would really come on. So I think that's a great place to segue into what advice do you have these days for new leaders coming up? Is it just on that people tip, or what are some things? Because the business has changed and evolved over the years, but that people aspect is still very much the same. What are two or three pieces of advice that you would give new leaders that are just starting out that are watching this now?
Well, there's, there, oh boy, you gotta be careful here because, we'll run out of time. But, I think if I were to simplify, it's one, I've said this for years, um, that if there's really only one thing I'd want people to say when I'm dead and gone is that Matt, I'm even if they didn't agree with what I did, they always knew that I did it with the best intentions, and it was always what I thought was in the best interest of the company or the people that work inside of it. And so it's all I really care when it's over. I want my wife to say different things than my son, but that Matt did it right, and that's it. And but there's a lot into that. There's the character that people have, but people need to be well intended with what they do. There shouldn't be a malicious thought in their head, and just be well intended. And you're going to have to make, when you get into bigger roles, you're going to have to make tough calls. You have to make decisions. And, some would say it's a cliche that being respected is more important than being liked. If you're just trying to always be liked, you can also be, kind of wishy-washy. And, but there's a likability factor with leaders. People want to work with people they enjoy working with. And candidly, I'm never going to hire anybody to work for me that I don't want to work with. I don't care how good they are at their job. If I don't enjoy working with you, why do I want to do that to myself, right? So, and I feel the same way. People want to work for leaders that they enjoy being around, but what's really important is they have to respect that they're well intended, that they have your best interest at heart, and they also have the best interest of the company at heart. Companies don't have a soul. The people in it have a soul, right? But we have to protect this thing to make sure this thing thrives and survives so that we can continue to create great environments for our people. So I'm always the person that will protect our brand and our company because that's what our people count on to be able to thrive and be successful, feed their families. So, it's just do everything with character. There are career shortcuts you can take, like go where nobody else will move. And you'll get there because they'll say, man, this is a person that's not ready quite yet, but they have the drive, ambition, and they're willing to go. Those are career shortcuts, but there's not shortcuts in other ways. And there's not, there's no, I don't like, anything that's kind of gray. I don't love it. Just do things with the best of intention, and you ought to be able to win on skill and drive and ability more than you win on finding some way to win that isn't up and up, because that's short, that's a short life. And you also, as a new leader, think about the consequences of decisions you're making that are beyond today. And I think new leaders, a lot of times, it's a metric that you're getting cranked over the head right now about, TNX other maybe is a metric. And so you make these short-term things that you do that have negative impacts on your people and your business because you're trying to get to a number for this afternoon or tomorrow. And you got to think about the consequences of short-term decisions that you make on the long term. And you have to think about that. And that comes with wisdom. But, you think about, hey, if I'm going to do this now, what's the impact going to be later to what I'm doing? And there's only so many hits your team's going to take, right? And you can't just club people over the head. And
Yeah.
and because that doesn't last, it doesn't work, and it's not sustainable. And so it doesn't work. And if you have to do that to get results, then they're not, your people aren't resonating with what you're saying, or you've somehow packed your store with a bunch of the wrong people. And it's usually not that, right? It's usually that your message isn't getting through in a way that works, which is why they're tuning you out. And you have to think about long-term consequence with everything that you do, and that will give you sustainability. And sometimes that means that you're going to take a hit with your boss. Sometimes they're going to be on you about something, and you have to be able to manage your boss sometimes on things. And young leaders are usually afraid to do that. And
Mhm.
I've been around enough that usually it's like, hey, I'll do this, but this is where I feel, and you can't be afraid to share it. So
Yeah. That's just awesome advice. And I'm gonna get ready to leave it there because I can't. I mean, we can't say anything better than everything that you just said. It's so simple, but yet leaders sometimes can find it difficult to not chase things short term. But if they just take that step back and really look at the impact that they're having on their people, it's all right there. And I want to ask you one more question though. And what are one or two things, Matt, that you've been seeing that you really like that you see leaders doing and you want them to keep doing it?
I've been impressed with the leadership at T-Mobile. I think I'll start with Mike Sievert. You know, there's just there's an optimism in him. He's obviously, he's brilliant, smart, and he sets the right tone. He's optimistic. He's energetic about our future. When there's things that we can be doing better, and every business has it. He paints a picture of hope, and I stole that from William Derrick, one of my heroes around here. But Mike Siebert paints a picture of hope for us that anything is possible. Be famous for customer experience. He puts that vision out there, and there doesn't have to be 9 pillars of how you do it. People get inspired to then go do that. And I'm
Mhm.
super impressed with that when you lay it out there and then you look for leaders that then will go bring your vision to life and bring that to life in the community. It doesn't have to be a program. It doesn't have to be a go-to-market initiative for that. What your hope is that someone can lay it out. It's like, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to bring that to life in our stores. And we're going to have that be how we operate day to day. So I really like how Mike does that. He has got
Yeah,
the most optimistic and positive leadership style of any CEO I've been around that's worked here or I've seen anywhere else in other companies.
I
It's
agree.
just
Yeah,
it's just impressive, and it sets the tone for the kind of culture that we have, and it makes you wanna stand up and go do something about it. So
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay, I always end by asking my guests would they be willing to come back on, but I'm not going to ask you that because when you come to New York, you're going to let me know and we're going to do this in person for at least another 15, 20 minutes because I only scratched the surface. I had about 10 questions for you, but we filled it up, So I want to grab you again when you come to New York and we'll get a camera and we'll find somewhere good and I'll get to see you face to face, which will be a pleasure for me. And I want to thank you, man, for not only coming on tonight because I know how busy you are, but for just all of the positivity that you've shown to me throughout the years. My daughter, who always still asks about you, asks that I see. Every time we would see each other, we take a picture together. I send it to her. She's like, "What? Where are you guys at?" But that's the impact and influence. And that has to be a good 12, 13, 14 years ago. She's 35 years old now. So, with four little kids. And so, she still remembers the director that would always come in and take the time to speak to me and ask me how I was doing and ask the whole team, how they were doing and how you can help make their business better. So thank you for being you. Thank you for what you're doing. Continue to do it, and wishing you nothing but success. I'm still following your career, and I'll continue to do that. So, folks, this has been Kenny and Matt with another episode of the Yak with Mac. Make sure you share this, leaders, when you see it. Share it especially with new leaders. Matt Chappell, a special, special leader. Thank you, Matt, for coming on.
thanks, Kenny. Hey, when I come see you in New York, it's going to be you coming to see me in like a Binghamton or a Utica. It isn't going to be
I'm
the
fine
city,
with
brother.
that. I'm fine. It's no small town if you're there, man. I'm fine with that. All right. Thank you, Matt.
We'll see you.